Okay, I'm going to try to add some basic enemies to our game here. So we're going to use it, we're going to continue with our Bayat platformer game, and we are going to basically add enemies, and we're going to have two types of enemies, and we're going to use inheritance to kind of make them interesting, or to at least demonstrate the use of inheritance. So let's see. There's a couple of things going on here, and let's make our enemies. So I found the enemies. If you look in the Bayat Games asset pack, and you go down to enemies, PNG, and there is in 128 by 128, there's a couple of different enemy types here. There's like a mace, and it's a saw, and a mace 128, and yeah. So let's use the 128 enemies here, and I'm going to grab. First, I'm going to grab the blank one. Okay. And let's put the blank one right here. All right. So this is going to be our blank enemy. And we will add to that enemy a couple of things, a rigid body 2D, and we will add a box collider. Now, as it is right now, yeah, we'll leave the box collider. We're going to let it have a box collider and have physics so that it will kind of potentially push the player around here. Now, one thing I want to do is I want to have it just capable of moving left to right. Okay, so we're going to freeze the Y position, and we're going to freeze the rotation of this object. Now, if we start play, it's not going to do really anything. It's just going to kind of sit there. Okay, start the game. Should just kind of sit there. Unless, of course, our player comes along, comes down here and tries to push it. It'll kind of push it off to the side there. That was kind of cool. But let's do something so that the enemy has some basic sort of movement of its own. We're going to script some behavior here. All right, so we're going to add a component. We're going to call it basic enemy. Okay, basic enemy. And hopefully it will open our basic enemy script here. Assets. Here's our basic enemy. All right. So what we want to have the basic enemy do is, in its update routine, perhaps we will have it move back and forth. So let's see. If we want to have it move back and forth, we could just interpolate its position. So why don't we go ahead and do that? We're going to just make this enemy have a scripted position. So let's see. We could use interpolate. We could use lerp. Why don't we do that? So we will say vector2 lerp. And what do we want to interpolate between? We want to interpolate between two numbers over the course of some time. Okay, so let's do this. I like to do it as a coroutine, or we could do it with accumulating time. Let's do it with a coroutine so we can kind of kill two birds with one stone, as they say. So what we're going to do is make this my move enemy function here, and I will have a while loop, while true, so it'll just kind of continue on forever. And we're going to interpolate some motion here over the course of some time. So if we know the time, let's do this. We'll say for int, or for float t equals 0 to t is less than, what do we want our value to be? We want our value to be 2 seconds, 2f. And then every increment will be, say, a 20th of a second. So we'll say t plus equals what? A 20th of a second is 0.05. Okay? So here's our loop, and we want to interpolate a value that is going to be going between two numbers. All right. So why don't we say that the numbers it's going to go, the locations it's going to go between is, we'll say vector 2 start position, and we'll also have end position. Okay. And now start position, we're just going to say start position equals transform dot position. So it's going to start off wherever it happens to be, right? But we want to do this. We want to say start position x minus equals, and we're going to say we want it to move 3. I'm going to move the x position, 3 to the left, and we want the end position to be, we could do this 2 for 1 here. All right. We want end position dot x plus equals 3f. Okay, so the starting position is going to be 3 to the left, and the ending position is going to be 3 to the right. So now we can say, all right, we want to interpolate between start position and end position. Okay? And we want to do it over the course of some time. Now, time is going to be t. Okay? Now, to have this actually take time, and this is going to be in a coroutine, so we're going to say return, let's see, return yield, let's get this backwards, yield return new wait for seconds, and we're going to wait for 0.05 seconds. Okay. All right. Now this isn't quite right because this is 2 up here, 2 seconds. And t here is going to be from 0 to 2, which wouldn't quite be correct. What we want it to be is we want to divide that by 2. Okay, so this will keep our t value, or the value we're going to send, the interpolated value, is going to go from 0 to 2, but it's going to be this value here is going to wind up being 0 to 1. So it's going to move from the left to the right and then snap back if we're not careful. All right. So we don't want it to snap backwards when we're done here. We want it to smoothly go in the opposite direction. So I'm going to do another loop, and I'm going to say for float t equals 2, while t is greater than or equal to 0, t minus equals 0.5. I could do that. That'd be one way of doing it. Or I could have just done this. Watch this. Because that would have been confusing, watching time pass backwards. I don't want to do that. I'm just going to say start at the end position and move back towards the start position. Okay, so that's going to go from here to here over the course of 2 seconds. So 2 seconds that way, 2 seconds this way. All right. So that is our coroutine. And we're going to do, in the start, we're going to say start coroutine. And the coroutine is going to be move enemy. Now there's one thing that's not quite right yet. We really didn't set that up as a proper coroutine here. It should be an I enumerator, and now we're good to go. All right. So this enemy, basic enemy, has one thing it can do. It can move left to right. And let's see if it works. So there he is. That's his position. And if all goes well, nothing happens. Why does nothing happen? Of course nothing happens. So we've interpolated this value. We've come up with a value, but we haven't assigned it to anything. That's kind of silly. All right. So what we want to have happen, of course, is transform dot position equals that. That'll make more sense. All right. Save that. Kind of moves back and forth. It's not super smooth, though, if you ask me. So 20th of a second, kind of chunky in this regard. And so let's change that. Let's say that we want to go in a 50th of a second. So a 50th of a second would be what? 0.2. So now we have to change this to 0.2. This is going to be our time slice here. 0.2, 0.2, 0.02, 0.02, 0.02. All right, much smoother. And let's change his starting point. It'll kind of start him off here. That's kind of cool. So what happens when the player runs down there? Let's see. Ah. So the player can kind of fight him, but the player doesn't do an awfully good job of. All right. So possibly the better thing would be actually to use, instead of transform dot position, we should transform dot, and it should be get component rigid body 2D move, right? Rigid body 2D, and we have move position, move the rigid body to position. Okay, so we're going to say move it to the new interpolated position. And that's sort of 6 of one, half dozen of another. I don't know. I like to do it this way because that's just doing it the official physics way. Let's see if it's any smoother. Same there. Yeah, it looks a little bit cooler in terms of how he's fighting here. We could change around the mass and stuff to kind of really do something. But anyway, so that's our basic enemy now. We have a basic enemy. Now, so what if we want to have a more interesting enemy? And we'll take this saw over here. And we'll take the saw and we're going to put it down. We'll put it over here. And just put it right there. And add component rigid body 2D. And add component circle collider 2D. And we want to put a script on this. So we'll say script, and we'll say saw enemy. Okay. So if we press play, the saw enemy is just going to drop down and do nothing, really. Hit the ground. Not a big deal. Let's freeze the saw enemy's Y position. But we want to give it, this saw enemy, some behavior. So right now, public class saw enemy inherits from mono behavior. So instead, let's have it inherit from basic enemy. And we'll get rid of these. Okay. So saw enemy inherits from basic enemy. So now if I press play over here, you'll see that it moves as well. Okay. But say I want to add some behavior to that. All right. So let's add some behavior to that. Now, I will go into my saw behavior here, and I'm going to add a simple coroutine. No, you know what? I don't even need a coroutine for this. This one's going to be easy, right? So inside of update, I'm going to have my void update. And in here, I want to have the saw rotate. So I'm going to say transform dot position dot position dot rotation transform dot rotation, and you see I can set and so on. Rotation, get set, rotate. Let's use rotate. So we will say rotate, and we want a set of 3 Euler angles. So we will say new vector 3, 0, 0, point. Let's see, we're going to do this in seconds, right? So in 1 second, we want it to rotate 360 degrees. So 360 F times time dot delta time. So that's how much time has passed, right? So if 1 second had passed, it would rotate 360 degrees. Okay, so any portion smaller than that, we assume this is going to get called at least once per second. So that's what we want to have. So now it says error. Okay, save that. So now our saw enemy is going to rotate and move just like that. Okay. So we've inherited that basic movement and added this rotation. All right. Let's have another enemy. So this last enemy is going to be this mace guy. It's going to be an interesting, weird thing. And we'll put it over here. And the mace guy, say we want to have it move up and down and up and down while moving left and right, left and right. All right, let's try that. Add component, rigid body 2D, and a box collider, collider 2D, and another component. We're going to call this a mace enemy. Or we can even call this, yeah, we'll just call it mace enemy. And this guy, we open up his script and we say, all right, we wanted to inherit from basic enemy. And let's see. If we look at the other scripts, saw enemy had this update happen, and mace and basic enemy had no update happening. So I could do something. If I said update, right? Because now this update, I don't want him to spin, and the other update, I could even, yeah, I could have even based him on the saw enemy and overridden the update, but I'll just do this update. So here's a different update, and for this update, I'm going to have it, transform dot translate I don't love translating up and down. I'm gonna do, what I'm gonna do, I think instead I want to do something more like the basic enemy did. So the basic enemy has this start here. This is what, see, its move enemy looked like this, right? That's what its move enemy looked like. So that's all cool. But let's see. All right. So I'm going to grab all this code, and this will make sense in a second here, hopefully. So I'm going to grab all that code, paste it in here, and I have my start in here, and this is my move enemy. I'm going to this close up. Whoops. Up, down. Okay. Move enemy up, down. So mace enemy, basic enemy start. It's going to go move enemy up, down. And now I'm going to say Y. I'm going to say the Y position here. And I'm going to move up and down by 1. All right. So save that. And our mace is going to move sort of up and down here. Get some serious gravity issues going on with this guy over here. So why don't I set gravity to 0 for him? What about doing that? Does that help? Mass of 0. Why don't I have it just be a kinematic? Mace, saw, mace. What is going on with this poor guy? Let's check. I must have done something wrong in the script. So, start coroutine here in my mace enemy. And it's trying to start position is equal to that. End position is equal to that. And certainly trying to move up and down. Let's see if I freeze the X position, does it then? It's interesting. Something's not quite cool in there. Make him static. No. Okay, kinematic worked. I don't know why that didn't work a minute ago. So kinematic is fine because I'm actually moving this. It's not subject to physics, right? So let's go up here, and now you'll see my character is going to get bounced around. Let's try to jump over that one, and we can land on top of that one. Now, it's not the ground. Oh, there's a problem for the character. If that's not grounded, I can't walk on him. All right, so we won't solve that other issue just now. But now we want to have this move not just up and down, but also left and right. So how can we do that? Do we have to add lots of code? No, we can do this. Inside of this start function here, we started this new coroutine. But let's do this. Let's say base dot start. Okay. Now, this is potentially an issue. It's inaccessible due to its protection level. So we can't get at this start routine over here. So let's see if I can do this. Let's go to basic enemy. And this start, I'm going to say that it is a protected function. Okay? So now that it's protected, that means that other things that are derived from it can go ahead and inherit it. Okay, so here's start. It potentially hides the inherited one. That's what it's kind of warning me over here. And I am then free to call the original. So let's see what happens. Oops. I have to make sure that this is in fact kinematic. And that his position is not frozen in the X. All right, not quite happening yet. Mace script. This is mace enemy, which inherits from basic enemy, which should be calling move enemy, setting that up. Oh. Here's the interesting thing. Are each of these, are they getting into, yeah, they're getting potentially into a weird situation here. In that this start position, end position assume that the X and Y aren't changing, or that the Y is not changing. So whichever one happens last is going to take precedence. So this is not a good way to move. See, this is why rigid body move position is not a great way to do this, because that is setting that specifically, interpolating up and down. All right, let's try to change something else different in here. All right, so let's interpolate something else. Let's interpolate get component sprite renderer. And we'll say sprite renderer color equals, all right, can I do that? Sprite render design position to color. Don't I? There is sprite renderer color. Renderer dot color. All right. And I want it to be what? I want it to be new color. Let's start a color up here. So we're going to say color equals, and it's going to be, for starters, we're going to say it is this. It is the same as that color. All right, so the color is the same as the color of the original sprite renderer. All right, so now we can take this and we're going to say color dot A, which is our alpha component, equals, and we could lerp, but you know what? All that's going to be is going to be t over 2. That's just going to go from 0 . So here we're not bothering to do the interpolation because it is a straight, simple, we're just recalculating this A, and we're using linear interpolation to go from 0 to 1 over here. And down here, we're going to do the sort of the opposite. All right. Color.A equals T is equal to 1F minus that. All right. And then what we have to do is say set that color to that color. All right. All right. So I'm going to fade in and out this guy. That's going to be an easier thing, I think, to. All right. So it's got the same motion as the other guys, but it's added this other one on top. So this guy does a fade, this guy does a rotate, this guy does the basic. All right. Now I would be free to do other things on top of that if I wanted to. You know, I could have, certain ones have different types of colliders. So like say maybe this one does nothing goes on when that collides. It just moves around according to physics. But maybe this one this mace enemy, I will put in the mace enemy a collider function. So this has on collision enter 2D, and I'm just going to say if anything touches me, I'm going to just destroy myself. Destroy game object. All right. So I'll have my character run over here and jump, and I'll try to destroy that thing. Boom, it's gone. Whereas this one, this one is all powerful. I have to. There, watch this. Ready? Oh, didn't work. Why? Because that has its rigid body set. Have to be careful. If I wind up on top of this thing, I may wind up. Okay. I may wind up not being able to move. Okay, so that was a simple way to set up some different enemies inheriting from a base enemy. So the basic enemy had that left to right movement. Then the saw enemy added an update routine. And then the mace enemy added another type of move and on collision 2D. Now I could have even done this. Watch this. If I wanted to saw enemy, now I'm going to inherit from an inherited class. All right, so this is going to be even a little more interesting in that if I do this, now this guy's probably going to rotate. Yep. He's crazy. He's totally crazy. And if I bump into him, he goes away. Let's jump on this guy. Oh, now I'm frozen. Whoa, look at that. All right, so there were some enemies. Have fun trying to implement that. Take care.